Welcome back to Dirty 20, everybody. Today we're talking about a cold, hard fact. Campaigns die. So, welcome back, guys. I know it was a bit of a downer of an intro, but hopefully by the end of this video, you will feel a little bit of hope. If you're going through some of this stuff, or if it's recently happened to you, and don't worry, D&D is still going to be a part of your life. So, it's just, as I said, a cold hard fact that life happens, and the campaign that you're enjoying, maybe playing weekly or just regularly enough that you're really invested, can, for whatever reason, just fizzle out. It's happened to me a bunch of times. For example, if you have a new player that's never played before, and you're enthusiastic, and at first they're into it, but for whatever reason they just don't take to it. It's not their cup of tea, and they drop out. That's going to mean that if you have a small party of, say, like 3 people, it's going to make continuing the campaign very difficult. These things happen. Another example that literally happened to me was I started a new job, my schedule changed, and then it became an absolute nightmare to try and get everybody's schedule to line up so we could have one evening with, 3 to 4 hours a week or bi-weekly where we could continue playing. And it just became too hard, so once again, that campaign just kind of trailed out. Now, these things happen, and it can be very, very disheartening. You can feel like you're never going to play D&D again, or you've felt a really kind of amazing chemistry with your other kind of players, or the DM was really great, and that campaign is probably not going to continue. But it's okay. And it's important to realize that this is not the end. One of the things that I've done whenever a campaign has kind of fizzled out was simply because it's easier to find one day where, everyone's kind of schedules align. Maybe it's a bank holiday, or maybe it's, a national holiday, and everyone can get together for an afternoon or an evening. Is a one-shot. We've talked about one-shots. I strongly recommend that you check out our video on that. But whether it's, you've never DM'd and you want to give it a go, a one-shot is a great way to kind of, get your feet wet and kind of scratch that D&D itch. But I think eventually it's inevitable that if you're someone who really enjoys playing D&D, you will meet new people, you'll find people whose time kind of, their schedule coincides with yours. And so if you are really, really committed, I guarantee you will find another group to get your D&D fix. It might even be that you have to take on the mantle of the Dungeon Master and the person who organizes the game. Now, I really strongly recommend this. If you have kind of the right... I don't want to say the right kind of frame of mind, but if you enjoy being the person who helps shape the story and help guide the players, challenging them and creating fun and interesting encounters and plots and things like that, then massively recommend it. As always, if you're thinking about this, please do check out Matt Colville's Running the Game series, as well as a bunch of videos that we have done on running campaigns, character creation, all those kinds of fun elements. So, in this kind of time, the dark ages as I like to call them, between a campaign maybe fizzling out and a new campaign, or you just getting to play D&D again, there's a few things we can do to improve ourselves as players, as dungeon masters, and I'm going to give you some suggestions of the kinds of things that you can do in this D&D downtime. Definitely look into classes. Whenever I kind of go and do some reading on the classes in the PHB or in Xanathar's Guide or what have you, I'm always surprised by the things that I learn from them. And it often inspires me for wanting to play a certain character, or, maybe give advice to someone who is playing that character or has played that character but didn't necessarily get the full, thing out of them. There's also so many subclasses that it's worth, maybe if you've been playing a barbarian for a long time and a campaign fizzles out, looking at the other options that you didn't take as a barbarian can either refine your understanding of the class or just simply kind of make you better when you decide to start playing again and maybe pick up the barbarian one more time. Reading the rules. Now, this may seem silly, but every time that I have gone back to the player's handbook and kind of reread some of the rules, I'm always surprised by some of the things that either, maybe through Reddit, I found someone talking about something and I just kind of believed them, or it's a kind of osmosis thing where the more you play, the more you think you know the rules from other people or from the things you read. But in fact, refreshing yourself on reading up on some of the rules can be really, really interesting. Case in point, a friend of mine sent me 3 little snapshots about some rules that he'd read up on, and it was just really, really interesting to see them from the player's handbook, which is a book that most, if not all, D&D regular players will own. So, for instance, the passive checks rule, which is something that I think most of us have heard of, at least in terms of passive perception, but in the PHB it talks about passive checks for almost any skills, which I think is very interesting. Something that I don't necessarily use very often, but is in there and is there for you to use. Group checks is another one which I think is really, really interesting. We've talked a little bit about it with regards to 4th edition rules and, doing skill challenges, which is a really fun mechanic from 4th edition. But here you also kind of have it in a nice simplified form, which, is 5e in a nutshell. And finally, the variant skills. Now, this is interesting. I've seen Jeremy Crawford, one of the main editors and designers at Wizards of the Coast for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. So this is where, for example, say you're trying to disable a trap, and you've got to, use either sleight of hand, because it's a fiddly thing, but instead of doing a sleight of hand dexterity check, you do a sleight of hand intelligence check, because the trap is perhaps very complicated and your character may need to understand that. So you can add your proficiency to sleight of hand if you've got it, but instead of adding your bonus from dexterity, you add from your intelligence. Now, this is something that I think you need to think about before you kind of try and implement, but it's interesting for given situations. Finally, make sure to use your Dark Age downtime to watch videos online, watch YouTube videos, watch all our YouTube videos, why not? But there's lots of great channels. Once again, please check out our top 5 YouTube D&D channels, where you will find some excellent things with regards to lore and rules and classes, all kinds of things. Definitely watch some videos, educate yourself a little bit on this wonderful game that is so expansive and has so much to it, which we often kind of, because we're so focused on, I want to play, I want to get my items and all of these things, often leads us to not really spending the time to research things. So there we have it. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that we started on a down note, but we end on an up note. Don't worry. Campaigns kind of fall apart, fizzle out, they die, but that's part of it. It also gives you an opportunity and time to be able to look up rules, do some research, find out more about the game, and become a better player or DM. Let us know in the comments below how some of your campaigns have kind of just fizzled out and how you overcame that, or how you used your time between campaigns to better yourself as a player or a DM. Thanks again, like and subscribe, and as always, keep slaying. If you've enjoyed this content, then please smash that like button, subscribe, share this around online, and come and visit our website, www.lavictoriaproductions.com, to see all our past episodes, as well as our blog posts and all the stuff that we're currently working on at La Victoria Productions. Why not reach out to us and tell us what you think of our videos? You can reach us on Twitter. @MouthLaVictoria is our producer. We are also on Instagram. I am EnanoLVP, and our producer is Jazzy J. Shiro. We're also La Victoria Productions on Facebook and LinkedIn. Come on by and let us know what you think.